This is episode 15 of Entrepreneurs for Change. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to our mailing list at entrepreneursforchange.com. Are you ready to be the change? If so, you've come to the right place. You're about to join a movement of entrepreneurs who are empowering people, saving the planet, and turning their passion into profits while creating the lifestyle of their dreams. If you don't believe us, check out our website at entrepreneursforchange.com, a place where you can be inspired, mentored, and supported by a tribe of change-making entrepreneurs just like you. Hello, evolutionary changemakers. Wow, there's quite some party going on outside the Pun Space co-working headquarters in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It's the GitHub Drink Up. Thanks, guys, for the free beer. GitHub is a San Francisco startup, and it's a web-based hosting service for software development projects. This is Lorna Lee, host of the Entrepreneurs for Change podcast, where we highlight the success stories of entrepreneurs who are changing the world through business and designing lifestyles of freedom and adventure. One of my passions in life is Amazon medicine. I've been to the Amazon rainforest of Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Brazil 8 times since 2004, and have been privileged to enter territories that are off limits to foreigners as a guest of the tribes. I've spent months in the backcountry of Brazil, traveling by river, scaling mountains, and staying in indigenous villages as a seeker of plant medicine wisdom. The value I've received as a guest of various tribes, specifically the Hunnuquin, the Ashaninka, Puyanawa, and Kuntanawa nations, in terms of healing, spiritual growth, expansion of my worldview, commitment to being a force for positive change in the world, has been priceless. The shamans of the Amazon basin possess a vast wealth of knowledge around medicinal plants. They have intimate knowledge of the plants and animals that coexist in the forest around them. They attribute their knowledge of medicine and even their culture to wisdom received from the plants and animals of the forest. In this episode, I have a return guest to the Entrepreneurs for a Change podcast. His name is Tyler Gage, and he's the founder of a beverage company called Runa. His previous interview on how to raise venture capital funding for your social enterprise can be found on entrepreneursforchange.com/9. He's returning to share his experience developing energy drinks for modern life from a plant that has ancient ethnobotanical uses. Guayusa tea has one of the highest concentrations of caffeine on the planet. The great thing about Guayusa is that, unlike the typical coffee crash and burn, it gives you sustained energy and mental clarity. It also has a clean taste without the bitterness of yerba maté. Tyler co-founded a quintessential triple bottom line business. Runa empowers indigenous tea producers in Ecuador, markets sustainably harvested products, and through their foundation spearheads reforestation and community development projects. Their latest project, Rios Net, a healing center that is based in Peru, is dedicated to the practice and preservation of indigenous Amazonian medicine. It will be the first center in the world to conduct clinical research into Amazonian plant medicines and patient outcomes. In this interview, Tyler will share with us how to get started raising venture capital funding, how they are able to optimize their hybrid for-profit, non-profit social enterprise model for maximum social and environmental benefit, how they maximize their profit margins without forcing their producers towards unsustainable living wages in a race to the bottom line, their secret towards accomplishing massive positive impact in the world, and much, much more. Links to organizations and resources mentioned in the interview can be found in our show notes at entrepreneursforchange.com/15. Now, before diving into the interview, I want to encourage you to rate, review, and download Entrepreneurs for a Change on iTunes. This really helps us reach more people with inspiring stories of entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Also, if these stories inspire you to start a world-changing business of your own, head over to our website at entrepreneursforchange.com and download the Business Changemakers Toolkit to get a jumpstart today. Now on to the show. Tyler, I am so pleased to have you with me again on Entrepreneurs for Change. And I have to say that I have been following the growth of your company with amazement. Actually, recently I went to a Whole Foods in California and I was thrilled to see Runa Energy all over the shelves. So I would love for you to share with us who you are, what you do, and tell us more about Runa products and how you've gotten from your concept to producing energy drinks for the hungry energy drink market in the United States.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear you found some Runa on the shelves in Whole Foods. It always warms my heart. It's exciting and always somewhat hard to believe that what started as a bit of a crazy vision has actually become what we intended. Yeah, so we got started a handful of years back. When I was a college student, I dropped out to do linguistic research in the Amazon and went down to Peru and spent a couple years down there working with some of the tribes in the Peruvian Amazon. And I really fell in love as, a kid who grew up in the suburbs with the native community's knowledge of the rainforest, their really intimate connection between their cultural values, the rainforest, and how that was the fabric of their language and their identity as a people. So I just had incredible experiences, would spend all night, hearing stories and myths from different elders. But I had a repeated experience where I would wake up at sunrise and hear chainsaws cutting down hardwood trees. And it'd be the same guys who I'd, talk to about the value of their culture and the rainforest. And when I'd ask them about this seeming disconnect, they'd all say the same thing, which was, if they have a choice, which is cutting down a tree or feeding their child. And if they had another way to make money and feed their children, they would do it. But since they have a very few economic alternatives and ways to support their families, it's pretty much cutting down trees. So that really hit home for me and led me to see that without alternative income sources and economic options, these communities weren't really in a good place. And they didn't have ways to actualize their cultural values and really carry their people forward in the way that they wanted to. So that got me thinking more about markets, got interested in fair trade, and started thinking about how some of the incredible plants that they use in the Amazon could potentially reach markets, and the production of them could be used to support these families. So one of the plants that I fell in love with is a leaf called Guayusa. Guayusa is in the holly family. It's native to the upper Amazon. Brewed like tea, but it's not actually tea, different plant. It's a really cool leaf that the communities get up right in the morning. They boil huge clay pots full of it and drink it before sunrise as they tell myths and stories. It's a really central part of particularly the Quechua culture in Ecuador. And functionally, it's a leaf that has a lot of caffeine. When brewed, it has about as much caffeine as coffee, and also has double the antioxidants of green tea, mostly from polyphenols. So we saw that this was a really cool product. It had a really awesome flavor to it. It had a really cool cultural history, and also had all these functional benefits, especially with the energy and the antioxidants, and saw that no one had ever commercially produced it. So I went back to college, and in my last semester wrote a business plan with my friend Dan to create a beverage company with Guayusa and use it as a vehicle to support these communities down in Ecuador.
Did you originally think that you were going to make energy drinks, or back at that time were you just thinking about packaging tea for, growing exotic tea market in the United States?
We actually did look towards beverage products like energy drinks. That's the fastest growing segment of the beverage market, and one which is still very dominated by particularly artificial and unhealthy products.
I know. I'm so glad to see alternatives that have, healthy ingredients like different herbs as well as like vitamins beyond, the commercial artificial options that we have like Monster or Red Bull, which, it just seems it's so like saccharine. It's so artificial. It doesn't even really taste very good. So I'm really glad to see that you've entered this market with a much healthier alternative.
Yeah, and that's exactly the opportunity that we saw. And saw that there were consumers. We saw a lot of what we called reluctant Red Bull drinkers.
Yes. Yeah, I kind of find that Red Bull really makes my heart race a lot, and the taste just seems, it's just so intense. It's not natural at all. And what I really like about Runa Energy is that the flavor is it's clean, and it's not overwhelmingly sweet. Quality of alertness and awakeness, not the heart racing type of energy that these artificial drinks have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the cool things about Guayusa is it's a leaf that doesn't have tannins, which would make green or black tea kind of astringent or a little bitter. So just on its own, its flavor is really naturally clean and very smooth.
So how did you go about developing and marketing your energy drinks? I mean, how do you get from the actual Guayusa tea leaf to create a beverage from that? Do you have scientists that you work with to brew up, to test different drinks and different flavors and to then come up with a product?
Yeah, we do. We work with some friends of ours who have a formulation lab that do a really awesome job and are just experts in flavors and formulas and have a particular knowledge of organics, which is obviously our passion, our focus. Yeah, and then we use third-party facilities to make the products and do the manufacturing and then sell them into the market.
Is everything organic?
Yeah, 100% organic, fair trade, and non-GMO certified.
That is fantastic. Because I kind of find, too, that a lot of the flavorings that you find in these drinks are completely chemical. And how to avoid, all these artificial additives, it's always a big challenge.
Right, exactly.
So I recall that, during the growth of your company, you went through a series of venture capital funding initiatives. Can you help us demystify the process of raising funding, especially VC funding for your company, in order to be able to scale to the level that you guys have?
Yeah, basically we kind of tried everything and just hustled a bunch from the beginning. We struggled a lot for quite a while in terms of having to be really efficient and scrappy and trying to make things work early on. And then, we set really clear goals for ourselves every couple months. So we got a group of people who started watching our progress and seeing our traction and witnessing what we could make happen and manifest. And we're able to bring in investors on top of that. So we've particularly worked with angel investors early on. So people who really believed in the vision, really believed in us. And then later on through our growth, we're able to bring together a group of more institutional investors and larger funds who have fueled a lot of our recent growth.
So how do you go about finding these angel investors?
It's a lot of just talking to different people. Yeah, we just friends of friends, conferences, industry groups, alumni from college, kind of everything in between. We took the strategy of being willing to take smaller investments from a larger group of people so that we could build more of a community around our work and not just have, a couple investment funds.
So what were the conferences that you found particularly valuable in terms of connecting you with, potential investors, especially since you were in the social enterprise world? So are there specific industry groups or conferences that you recommend for aspiring social entrepreneurs in order to get connected with influencers and potential funders?
Yeah, Investor Circle is a group who we worked with. The Social Venture Network is another one. Those were both really good groups who were very supportive and just have a really amazing community around them.
Okay. And from the angel level, then how did you make the transition to the next level? Can you demystify how venture capital funding works?
Yeah, a lot of it was results-based. So we really had some key results at that point. One of the key things for us, too, is once we had a product that we were selling in the market, and even just could tell a story around the success at retail, how happy stores were with the product, sell-through, and could really paint a clear picture, even if it wasn't particularly extensive, but that we could show case study, which people could then expand and exponentiate and amplify and then invest behind that potential.
So after the angel level, is it Series A?
Yeah, Series A, right.
Okay. And so what series level are you at right now?
Series B.
Okay. What's the difference between Series A and Series B?
Just progression. Yeah, just kind of as we raised the Series A, we grew for a while, and then to fuel the next phase of growth, that's our Series B.
Is there a difference in, terms between one level or the other?
It really depends on the company. For us, our Series A and Series B were fairly similar.
How much funding have you actually raised to date?
We've raised a fair bit, and we raised both because we have Runa Foundation as well. So we've raised money both for the nonprofit and for the for-profit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you, the amount that you've raised, is it in the, millions? Is it in the, high six figures?
Yeah, it's in the millions.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been, we've been doing a lot of stuff in Ecuador and in the U.S. and have grown quite a bit, so it's been good.
So help me understand the structure of your company, because it seems like you have a hybrid for-profit, nonprofit model. So can you kind of tell us how you guys organize? How do you have these two different business models or organizations interact with each other? How do they support each other? And how do you, do you have different ways of fundraising for them or managing them? Like, how does one do a hybrid for-profit, nonprofit social enterprise?
I think there are a bunch of different ways to do it. The way that we've done it is the base of our mission is our nonprofit of improving livelihoods for farming communities in the Amazon. From there, the vehicle we do that through primarily is by building markets. So we created a for-profit company who could do the processing and exports and sales and all that sort of stuff. And it's really effective because we have the company that can do the business side of it and really be a driver to put money in farmers' hands, but also as a company, so it has to run a business and think a lot about marketing and everything else. So what's been nice about having the nonprofit is that the nonprofit can think much more broadly and much more long-term about the impact of our work and really how to leverage and translate the income the communities are making into impact and do a lot more with the reforestation work, with the cooperative development, and really not just having a supply chain for Guayusa, but really having a value chain.
So do you send a percentage of profits from your for-profit business to fund the nonprofit programs?
We don't, actually. So part of our interest, too, is to have the nonprofit be fairly separate because we want the nonprofit to have much more autonomy and really sit on the farmer side of the table and help them be as strong and trained as possible to basically gain more autonomy and be strong in some ways against the company. So the nonprofit's been primarily funded through government grants and through donations.
How many people do you have working the nonprofit side of things?
We have about 7 working in Ecuador right now, and we have 3 working in Peru.
Cool. And how many people are working in the for-profit side of your business?
We're about 24 in the U.S. and about 36 down in Ecuador.
Wow, that's fantastic. I remember visiting your offices in Ecuador, the Runa office in Mariposa.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it still there?
Yeah, the office is still there. Yeah, it's been quite a lot of growth since you were there last.
That was such a beautiful little scene you had down there. I really just love the spirit and the energy of all the people that were working for you, so I'm really glad to see you guys growing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but we're really thankful to have just an incredible team.
So tell me more about the programs that you operate through Runa Foundation.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work in the sustainable forestry and sustainable agriculture space. So we have a huge reforestation program, actually the largest reforestation program in the Ecuadorian Amazon. We have a tree nursery the size of a football field. To date, we've planted almost 800,000 trees. So that's a really big focus is tree production, reforestation, and then working directly with the indigenous Quechua farmers to manage their own sustainable land management and conservation programs. So we do a lot of workshops. We have a whole extension team which works directly with farmers to plan and manage their land, also helping them get organic certified so they can get price premiums for their crops, and then doing research as well so they can understand more what is the most profitable way to use their land, where they're earning money.
Do you ever feel that some of the work that you're doing in the nonprofit side of things might create tensions between the for-profit side of your organization? Because so it's kind of interesting, when we think about business, one of the, driving forces of business, especially profitable business, is trying to keep costs down in order to increase profit margins. And on the other side of the fence, you have your nonprofit that is working on empowering the farmers that you work with. So do you ever find zones of tension between the for-profit and nonprofit sides, or have you figured out how to make them work synergistically so that you do generate not only a rewarding or viable amount of profit for your business at the same time as empowering the people that you work with? How do you manage that delicate balance?
Yeah, our focus and reason for being is to make money for the Quechua farmers. So that's really the big focus behind what we do. So as we grow, the goal has been to, we guarantee a minimum price to the farmers so that they have a guaranteed income source and can really invest behind Guayusa. And then at the same time, we can scale our business so that we can reduce costs through economies of scale so that we save money sending larger shipments as opposed to smaller shipments. That as we buy more glass bottles, we get better pricing. So it's really trying to reduce our costs and increase our margins through everything else except for paying money for Guayusa. In concrete terms, we pay 35 cents per pound directly to farmers for fresh Guayusa leaves. And it's about 4 pounds of fresh leaves to make 1 pound of dried leaf. So it's, $1.40 is our cost to fresh leaf cost to make a pound of Guayusa. You can buy like a totally dried processed pound of organic and fair trade certified like black tea in India for like 70 cents. So basically our ingredient cost is about double like the full cost of even organic and fair trade black tea. So it's something that we're very willing to do, and it's a great product. So thankfully people are willing to pay a bit of a premium for it, but we're not willing to diminish what we're paying to the farmers.
I really like that approach because I see so often, companies really squeezing the producers, and we end up with this dynamic that's kind of like a race to the bottom line. So I really like your approach on achieving economies of scale and then being able to lower overall costs this way rather than have to force your producers to work at like unsustainable levels.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So tell me more about then this new project that you have going on, Rios Net. Is that a Runa Foundation spearheaded project, or is this a partnership with an existing organization that you discovered in Peru?
Yes, it's a separate organization, Rios Net, that's Runa Foundation is helping to fund. And Rios Net is going to be a clinic in the Peruvian Amazon that integrates traditional Amazonian medicine with Western medicine. So it'll be the first clinic and research facility in the world to really look at the efficacy of traditional Amazonian medicine to treat and cure chronic disease. So yeah, I got involved in that through some of our other partners in Peru, working particularly with some Shipibo healers who have been having pretty striking success treating chronically ill patients with autoimmune disorders and cancers, and seeing a lot of testimonials and informal reports about the efficacy of some of these plant medicine treatments. And recognizing that, although there's, hundreds of millions of dollars of research going to the integration of Chinese medicine and Western medicine, that there really isn't any money going to research the clinical efficacy of these traditional medicines in their traditional medical system. There's definitely people who are trying to extract compounds from Amazonian plants, but not really look actually at Amazonian plant medicine as a medical body in and of itself. So we saw a tremendous need, and particularly from Runa's point of view of trying to really prove the value of the Amazon in today's world, we saw that if we could support clinical research that could really show the efficacy of these plant treatments, that would potentially attract a whole new set of international value and attention to conserving these plants and resources.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It would be so great to see much more research. I guess, when I think about some of the traditional ways of working with plant medicines, it tends to be a lot more holistic. So it's not just working with the plants and whatever, medicines that you might, create with the plants, but, sometimes the doctor or the traditional doctor will, prescribe certain, types of practices that you do, or even prayers, or, spending a lot of time in nature. There's a guy that I spent time with in Peru called Juan Flores Salazar. And my friends, one is a writer, the other is a psychotherapist. And she brought her patient over to spend time with Juan Flores Salazar at his healing center called Mayantuyacu. And her patient had brain tumor. And she was on some, pretty serious meds. And so when she opted to get treated by Juan Flores Salazar, he not only gave her medicines, but told her to, immerse herself in the river and spend time there and, call upon, the healing powers of the water to heal her spirit. He worked a lot with, just within their particular, worldview and paradigm, they worked with a lot with nature spirits in order to, heal her as well. And the fascinating story of it all is that when she left Chile, she had a range of tests, x-rays, and she'd basically, there's a lot of documentation as to her condition and her tumor. When she returned after a month of working in Peru with a plant medicine healer, she went back to her doctors and they did another range of tests and they took x-rays and they couldn't find the tumor anymore. And so it's really fascinating to look at this traditional approach because it's not just taking, pills, or it's not just taking, drinking like a medicinal tea. It's really just everything that you do within the healing process, both holistic and spiritual, I can imagine too, even emotional. So I'm really glad that you are involved with this, moving forward, this research center and healing clinic, because there hasn't been enough scientific study on what's really working. Because a lot of times, it's easy to assume that it's faith-based healing, but I think it's deeper than that. And I think there's a lot to be learned, I think, in terms of healing modalities, if we can look at the whole picture of what it takes to heal somebody rather than just boil it down to, a prescription and taking medicine.
Right, exactly. And I think the thing we're most concerned about is efficacy. So at least in the first part, it's not trying to explain why it works or which part of this very holistic or these holistic treatment plans work. But it's saying, great, if there's someone had a tumor, did the tumor get bigger or smaller? If it got smaller and we can really repeat that and show that that's a frequent occurrence and at a higher percentage rate than current treatment plans, that's something to pay attention to. And the sort of explanatory side of it is a bit secondary, particularly given the complexity and integrated approaches of these methods.
Are there any specific stories of healing that you came across, with regards to working with this organization, and that suggests that there's a lot of benefits towards working with traditional Amazonian plants?
Oh, yeah. Endless. There's a number of people we continue to come across, too, of people who with, different cancers, multiple sclerosis, who have just amazing stories of either healing from those plants or feeling like that they've had much more rapid recovery and working with some of these plants. It's amazing.
Have you come across any stories of people who have actually healed themselves from cancer using these treatments?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of friends, actually, people I've come across through this. And there's a really cool documentary too. Have you seen Sacred Science?
No, I have not.
Yeah, it's a really awesome documentary came out where this group brought down people with all sorts of different diseases to work in the Amazon and came back with some pretty striking results. Some, guy got cured of his diabetes and some pretty amazing results.
Were they working in Peru?
In Peru, yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, so what is the long-term vision? So where is Rios Net right now in terms of its development, and where do you see it growing?
Yeah, so right now, Rios Net, we have a really beautiful 30-acre piece of land outside of Tarapoto in the Peruvian Amazon, the Upper Amazon. We have all the architectural plans for the clinic. We had a couple people working full-time, and we're doing fundraising right now to raise the money for construction and plan on the clinic being operative by 2015.
Did you actually have a chance to meet Guillermo Arevalo, who I think is the lead traditional healer?
Yeah, Guillermo's incredible.
Yeah, I sat up with him in Iquitos in 2007.
Yeah. Definite powerhouse. His knowledge of the plants is pretty tremendous.
So what do you think we in the Western world can learn from traditional shamanic healing methods using Amazonian plant medicines?
I think we can learn a lot. I think one of the things which Western medicine is starting to hone in on is this concept of psychogenic illness.
What is psychogenic illness?
This is particularly related to chronic disease and autoimmune disorders to a certain extent, but basically that we can make our body sick through psychological influences. And a lot of diseases now are very stress-based diseases, and just that the sort of wear and tear on our organs and nervous systems as a result of compounded stress, for example, which is a psychological phenomenon. It's experiential. It comes from our processing of the world as people, and not as like a sort of physical thing per se that happened to us. So I think there's a lot more research, and I think psychoimmunology is a whole field in and of itself, which is up and coming. So people recognizing that there is a pretty intimate connection between, our thoughts, our emotions, our emotional reality, and the health of our bodies. And that I think these traditional medicines work under that understanding at their core and can really look at that pretty complex intersection of psychological well-being, emotional well-being, and physical well-being.
So I'm amazed that you juggle so many different aspects of creating a positive change in the world through the establishment of a profitable business, as well as partnering with nonprofits and, creating a, charitable organization. That, I kind of find that what you have brought into the world is pretty substantial. And, I think a lot of people even just have a hard time just focusing on one business. So I'd love to find out or ask you, like, how do you do so much, Tyler? How are you able to do so much?
I definitely fall in that category of having trouble focusing on one business myself. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it at this point is we just have a ridiculously amazing team, and it's been a group effort. And we've taken the approach from the beginning that, you know, if we could get a really diverse, committed group of people to work towards a common goal, that would be powerful. I think the results we're seeing now are a result of that.
So in your entrepreneurial journey, what would you say was your biggest business failure, and what lesson did you learn from this experience?
Ooh, there's a lot of them. What would be the biggest one? Yeah, I think one of them, when we started working in Ecuador, we tried to work in 2 different states, 2 provinces at once. We were just so excited and ambitious and saw the opportunity to help farmers. And basically it was just too much to support. Part of it, we didn't really have a great team in one of the provinces. And because we were trying to do too much, we couldn't really pay that close attention to it. And ultimately had to shut down our office in that province. So that was, especially early on, kind of a big heartbreak to feel like we, put a lot of resources and time into making something work and just ultimately couldn't. I think came down to a lack of focus. And, I think being ambitious and idealistic is great, but making sure to knowing what our limits were within that was a big lesson.
Okay, that's really good to know. I mean, yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to be able to have clarity over what's happening, because I think if you're too scattered and you can't focus on what's going on, then what's not working can continue on for far longer than you would expect. And that's not good. So let me ask you, are you fulfilling your life purpose through your business?
I feel like I am.
So what is your life purpose? What do you see your life purpose as?
I mean, I don't know if I could totally articulate it, but the thing I'm most passionate about is really proving the value of the Amazon. So trying to take even the conversation out of just a purely kind of conservation point of view or something that we should do, and really proving to people that in even economic terms, that the value of the Amazon to share potent medicines with the world that can save lives and also offer products that have real economic value and demand from consumers, that works, that we can attribute a value which the global community can really recognize, understand to the Amazon.
Fantastic. So we're about at the end of our segment. How can we best stay in touch with you, Tyler?
Our website is great, runa.org. We're also really active on Facebook, Facebook.com/drinkruna. And we give away free trips to the Amazon and give away all sorts of gear and all that sort of stuff. And you can find Runa. We're in about 6,000 stores now across the country. So everything from Whole Foods to Vitamin Shop. We'll be in Safeway on the West Coast in a couple months. So check out Runa and share the word. It's very much appreciated.
You give away free trips to the Amazon?
We do. We're actually doing a competition right now in partnership with Essential Water, giving away a trip to the Amazon, so people should check that out.
Oh my God, that sounds so exciting. I'm going to check it out right now. Thanks so much, Tyler. You have a wonderful day. Thanks, folks, for listening to the Entrepreneurs for a Change podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us reach more people with inspiring stories like this one by giving us a 5-star rating in iTunes. If this podcast inspires you to join the movement of change-making entrepreneurs, we'd love to give you a jumpstart with our free Business Changemakers Toolkit, which you can download at www.entrepreneursforachange.com/join. If you have a changemaker in mind you'd love for us to interview, go to entrepreneursforachange.com/suggest and tell us who and why. Finally, feel free to stop by facebook.com/entrepreneursforachange to share your thoughts and say hello.